Hi everyone, we just got some patch notes. We're still live on stream here, so I just wanted to go through that real quick. Here's a short summary, but I also want to explain a little bit what's going on behind this. So I've also linked this down in the description. You can check it out. It's not that much to read. It's just kind of like a 2 weeks in a little patch. It's not like a mid-season patch where like everything changes or so. But Blizzard has said that they are committed to making updates in the first few weeks of the season, fixing big bugs, nerfing OP builds and so on. Turns out they're actually not putting any nerfs into this patch here. It's only buffs. And well, that sounds like a bunch of builds might become a bit more interesting here. So let's go through that real quick. So we start here. Spiritborn gets a bunch of little updates. Basically every build will go up a little bit, like a pit tier or something like that. It will just feel overall a bit better. Besides the poison builds, they get nothing. A little protector buff that does also nothing, but all of the key passes here are much improved. So this applies to like all the Thorns builds, all the Kapaneka builds, and so on. So this is all pretty nice. Even leveling is improved, which was already very good here. Then we have a bunch of bug fixes here. Nothing really too crazy. There's a lot of bug fixes for also the bosses and whatnot. But there's some kind of huge stuff further down. For some other class buffs, we have the Barbarian here. So Whirlwind is getting huge updates. Gorz, Devastating Grass, are getting a big buff. Actually, 2 buffs, in fact. And Whirlwind now also does more damage. So I know that from some people that they are actually enjoying pure Whirlwind and not playing the Earthquake stuff, which apparently can do Torment 4 right now. So I expect this to not be like a top tier build, but definitely, easy peasy farming mode enabled basically if you don't want to do earthquakes. So that could actually be something for the future at the very least, or something to try out and see how good it is right now. A small double swing buff, kind of cool, but right now double swing relies on Crown of Lucion, which is not mentioned in this patch, and it has been disabled last week, so we can't actually play that build. So maybe it's gonna come back. But there's no mention of that in the patch notes right now, so it's a bit unfortunate. Then for the Druids, we have a bunch of keystone buffs here. This is mostly for the human form stuff. So you have the Geflin's Birthright, where you actually have Perfect Storm and Earth and Might. You get a buff to both. There might be some builds out there that actually run these key passives, but not really much. Most of the stuff is like, shapeshifting with Bestial Rampage and these kind of things. So this might actually make some kind of human form now a thing. So I'm quite excited to see what will happen. And I'm also actually planning to try out some Druid sometime next week. So I might be loading one up and see what happens. That's kind of cool. For the Necros, there is mostly some minion buffs here. Nothing really crazy, but it helps a bit, I guess. The aspect of reanimation plus the Skeletal Priest buff. You will notice that. Sounds like something like a 40 or so % increase. Sanguinor was a little bit buffed, but remains totally useless, I think. So I don't really expect much there. Kind of the same goes for the Death Trap. Poison Trap on the Rogue. So Poisoner got a little damage buff, and the gloves that they introduced is getting a little buff, and then this aspect. But I think all of that will remain pretty worthless, unless we can somehow make some kind of weird crit Poison Trap build out of this now, but I kind of doubt it. So there's like a way to temper Poison Trap duration, and then you can get like a 30% pop of the Poison Trap. So maybe if like full spam reset it somehow, you can get something out of this, but I'm not really that hopeful about it, to be honest. So especially with stuff like Death Trap in the game right now, this is not going to go anywhere close, I imagine. But we'll see. Maybe for the future, maybe it's going to be some kind of like, fun off-meta build or something. Then I have the Sorks. They get this update here. I'm not sure if that is actually an update because I thought it already worked. But if it does now work and it didn't before, then there's actually a pretty huge buff to especially like some kind of speed farming setups and leveling. For example, I leveled to Shocking Impact and Familiar, and that was really good. And that might now be completely crazy if this actually improved like this. Ice Shot's getting a little bit of an update here as well. Blizzard, I think this is nothing really relevant. So this is, just for the enchant that we don't really use anyway. So this is whatever. Yeah, aside from that, there's a few other little updates here. So we can now turn in the Spectral Ash on Vendor. So previously, people are stacking up tons of Spectral Ash. So for example, I have, 135k, everything maxed out, so I can't do anything with that. A lot of people ran into that issue when they found a lot of bosses. So now we can actually do something with this, which is kind of nice. And also updating some of the boss powers here. So in particular, the Belial modifier is going to be interesting. It's going to be a 2-second buff instead of a one-time use for the overpower improvement. So this is this power here. This was actually supposed to work that way already, but then it didn't. And now we actually have just the 2-second buff that we expected. So for some overpower builds especially, this will be like a nice little update. When they didn't have like any other powers that were useful here, maybe for especially bar builds with physical damage and stuff like that. So we'll see. Also, something for Spiritborn again, unyielding hits will be enabled for Varshan, Belial, and Ashava powers, and that is actually huge. So we might actually see the Ashava Spiritborn finally come to life, but more importantly, I'm playing a build right now that is like fresh out of the oven basically, where I can clear something like around pit 100 in like 5 minutes on a good run, which is way stronger than anything we have seen on the Spiritborn so far. I'll be talking about this build a bit more another time. I'm still a little bit cooking and so on. But if that suddenly becomes enabled, then this build will become another ×2 or ×3 as strong as it is, potentially beating basically everything that's not Lightning Spear or a similar Varshan-based setup on other classes. So that's quite exciting. And well, we'll see what happens here. But yeah, for Spiritborn, there's pretty big stuff coming. And that's pretty much it for the patch notes. So there's no mentions of material shortages or dupes or gold or anything like that. So nothing coming there. I do expect we're going to get something like a Mother's Blessing buff maybe in a few weeks as well, or maybe some March of the Goblins again or so. There's tons of little bug fixes, but this is pretty much the gist of it here. So I hope you enjoyed my little summary. I will keep you guys updated with what comes out of this. This goes live next Wednesday actually, on the 14th for some reason. Usually it's a Tuesday, but here we are. So in 5 days from now, and well, I'm definitely excited, especially for the Spiritborn stuff, and maybe they're gonna do some other little fixes like what I mentioned with, you know, the Crown of Lucion or whatever. So that's what I got here for now. Hope you enjoyed the summary and let me know what you think, and see you guys next time.